Email deliverability. It's obviously a hot topic in B2B outreach. Why is it so hard? What's causing it?
I think it's easy to look at email deliverability as this challenge that needs to be solved, and it's almost that view on it that makes it always appear hard, because fundamentally email deliverability has been a thing ever since email. There's been new measures to combat spam, to combat unwanted emails, to control inboxes, ever since the advent of commercial mail, which probably 15, 20 years now. And the reason it's hard is that it requires some really deep technical understanding of how email works, as well as real consistent effort to keep up with things that are changing. And you get these big sweeping changes sometimes, like the Google and Yahoo rules and the Outlook changes. But in reality, when you're always dealing with algorithmic spam filters, so one of the reasons Gmail was such a big hit when it first came out is it was the first commercial and personal email service to use algorithmic spam filters. There's no master set of rules which says don't use this word or this sends it to spam. It learns what the behavior of an individual and global spam email is and works based on that. And it works very well and does a great job at keeping spam emails out. And so that approach was very rapidly adopted by Microsoft, by the big kind of secure email gateways like Proofpoint, Mimecast. And what that means is you've got self-learning processes that are designed to keep unwanted emails out of an inbox. And it changes all the time. Making sure that you're not flagged as one of those senders, making sure you're not flagged for technical reasons, domain reasons, content reasons. It's not a checkbox exercise. It's not something you solve. It requires a real constant focus on all of those things, so you can proactively address issues. And also when unexpected ones arise, you can react to them in the right way.
Yeah, for sure. Do you ever think, something has just occurred to me, right? You're a founder of a B2B outreach company, and email is a core part of that. Do you ever think that they're trying to stop what you're doing?
Interesting. I guess stopping unwanted email is the goal. And I don't see our goal as getting emails into the inbox for the sake of it. I see us as, if we've got an unwanted or unexpected email, then largely we're not doing our job well. And I would much, much, much rather be sending fewer emails and getting a much better response rate, because we're sending it to the right people at the right time, than have a hack that means we can get thousands or tens of thousands of emails into an inbox. And I mean, really, over the last 2 or 3 years, we've seen a huge rise in really, really low quality email-only senders who are sort of all over LinkedIn and Twitter with their wisdom around if 1,000 prospects a month isn't enough, send 10,000. 10,000 is enough, send 100,000. That's all you need to do.
Yeah, I saw an advert on LinkedIn the other day that just simply said, you're not sending enough cold emails.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's never the answer. And it's one of the reasons we made a real shift towards multi-channel and an account-based focus. We started that project January 2023 because there's only one way that the rise of these, trying to think of an appropriate word, cowboys, goes, and that is they're flooding the market with millions, tens of millions of unwanted emails, which ultimately is going to lead to a tightening in these rules. And when Google and Yahoo introduced those rules, it wasn't unexpected. Actually, those rules had existed for a long time for bulk senders. It's just that they lowered the thresholds of what constituted a bulk sender. And also under the hood, they're applying a lot of the same rules just to normal email, even where they suspect that there is a bulk sending pattern. And so understandably, it makes it much, 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 much harder to send thousands or tens of thousands of emails. And we're seeing a real exit from the market of a lot of these small companies who are probably onto the next big get-rich-quick scheme.
Yeah.
So it does make things harder, but it reinforces that flight of quality versus quantity.
Yeah. If an email isn't delivered, this is me not knowing the technical sides of it, can you tell that an email is not delivered as the sender?
So there's different ways of looking at deliverability. So if an email literally doesn't make it to the recipient server, then in about 80% of cases you can, because they'll send you a message to say, this hasn't made it for these reasons. There's still a decent percentage, sort of 20%, who won't send that message just because they don't want to. But really, that's just your first hurdle. If the technical setup is correct, if you're not sort of misbehaving, you won't get those responses. The challenge is more about where you end up. And if you look at a Gmail account, you start off with the original inbox, promotions, update, social tabs. And if you're landing in promotions rather than inbox, not very many people.
I do not look at those. And the things that land in there are things I've signed up to. I'm still not looking at them, yeah.
But then obviously you've got the actual, the jungle spam. And if you're ending up in there, then even fewer people are reading you. And if they do, they're not really ascribing much authority to the message.
Yeah.
And so you might as well have not been delivered. And that's the core part of email delivery. And it's one that's really hard to measure. You don't have access to people's inbox. You don't know that you land in their inbox or in their spam. And so it's much, much, much more important to focus on metrics like response rate, the percentage of people that receive an email and are replying. Because it's an all-encompassing metric, which really, if you've got poor deliverability, you will have poor response rates. But even if you've got good deliverability and a poor offer or messaging, again, you'll get poor response rates. And so it's the biggest, number one indicator of you've got all of those things correct.
Yeah. So if there's no kind of easy way to say our deliverability's tanked this month or whatever, do you think people realise how big an issue this is generally?
So it comes back to the first question, why is it so hard? I think, people, it depends on what stage of the journey they're at. I think if a company's tried to do outreach in-house, then you very, very quickly realise how difficult it is. It could just be that you don't get very many responses.
Yeah, I suppose to go back to that, you might not know. You just think, well, we're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Because people aren't responding. But you don't know, as a kind of in-house, presumably, you're not an expert in this, then you don't know what it is that you're doing wrong.
Completely. And typically it won't just be one thing. Whenever we do review in-house processes, the deliverability is generally pretty poor. But equally the messaging. We've trained our messaging over many years to elicit the best possible responses. But quite often we'll see in-house email secretaries that are going out sending newsletters or really beautiful HTML content, which A, doesn't make it through spam filters, and B, no one signed up to receive, and they don't want to. However, sort of anyone who's really invested in having this outreach approach will come across the topic of email deliverability, and it's very, very, very apparent straight away on how complex it is. And the lack of metrics is probably the best demonstration of that. You mentioned it yourself. There's no way of knowing where an email lands. There's no actual, here's my deliverability percentage. It relies on having that knowledge and being able to infer it from results, and at the same time running huge amounts of experiments. At any one time, we've got probably 20, 30 different experiments going on, which are great proxies for the overall health of our email deliverability platform. If we start to see inbox placement drop in other mailboxes that we do control and can see the results of, we know that there's potentially something to look at there.
Nice.
If there are messages coming back from a particular sender, we analyse that and determine whether we need to react or not react accordingly. And it's this proactive approach which kind of ensures that the response rate, the overall metric, stays consistent.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we're
just to add on to that, actually, and it's probably the best example of where this comes in is we're seeing a large number of typically smaller companies just cease to exist. We have sort of many conversations, maybe one or two a week, where they just aren't able to get emails delivered and actually don't know where to go, because it's not something you can really fix after the event. There's a button that fixes deliverability. There's nothing you can go and buy deliverability. And what happens is, a result of massive underinvestment in understanding the systems that drive their business, is causing their business to fail. And as unfortunate as it is, Not having that level of investment and understanding in email deliverability is a really, really risky and short-term setup.
Yeah. And that, I mean, it's something that, like our research, I think it was like 48%. So basically, like, every other company it says, yeah, this is a problem. We're struggling to kind of get past spam filters or to land in the inbox. Is there kind of like, where do you start with deliverability, or is it not that simple?
It's, it really is. It's not that simple. It's like any kind of technical discipline where ultimately you have to decide, do we want to build that expertise in-house? Look at it for traditional marketing. Because where do you start with content? Do you just get someone who actually works on this other team here to learn how to write some blog posts? Great. That's going to get you somewhere.
Yeah.
But in terms of measurable results, it's very, very difficult. And so the decision is no different with email deliverability. You build that expertise in-house, which is going to be a dedicated person who has a deep understanding, the technical tools and infrastructure they need around that. Or do you outsource it to an expert?
Yeah. Yeah. And I suppose from what I know of what happens at Sopro, we have like teams of people. Like, it's not just one person. I know it's our business, but we have teams of people working on that, which sort of gives me some indication of the complexity and of the reality of trying to do that in-house. Because as you say, that's, it's not going to be someone's kind of full expertise in their full-time job if it's an in-house thing. So we're able to kind of throw all that resource at it because it matters for our clients. And
completely. It's like with anything, it's unit economics. It makes sense for us to spend that level of investment on the people and the tech to do it because, it's core to our service. And we're also sending enough emails that, overall, the benefits of that are seen across all clients.
Yeah.
It's for any sort of company doing it in-house to have the same level of investment. They'd need to be sending a huge amount of emails in order for that to be worthwhile.
Yeah, for sure.
Email deliverability has been something I've been into for way longer than just Sopro, sort of 15, 20 years. And it's something I could happily talk about all day, the deep technical details. And
yeah, clearly it's a complex and really interesting subject. So thanks.